Baseball is Dead podcast, owner of A Perfect Game. It's former Major Leaguer Dallas Braden. What's up, brother?
How we doing, man? How you guys doing?
Bad. Hey, it's not good. What are you talking about? Dude, we lost. You tweeted yesterday. I saw yours as well because I'm a sycophant and I'm like reading all the tweets, just angry, right? Doom scrolling. And I saw yours. We were like, Royce Lewis, blah, blah, blah. He's amazing. First win for the Twins in 2 decades. You know what sucks? Losing to the team that is famous for losing playoff games. Like, that reeks. I hated that. And so, yeah, good for Twins fans, blah, 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 whatever. I don't care. That stung. Toronto, that hurt me. That hurt me deep in my soul that Toronto gave them their first one in 2 decades. You don't want to be the loser team that lets the losers over the hump.
No, that's tough. That's tough. Like I said, the Twins, I mean, they had a lot riding on that game there, right? They had a lot riding. As I mentioned, almost 2 decades worth of sorrow, worth of a playoff win drought. So I can understand why watching that unfold is troublesome, is a dagger in the heart, simply because of how things unfolded, I think, yesterday as well. I mean, you mentioned, and I was listening to you, pour the emotion out, which, hey, that's what we're here for, JD. Mm-hmm. Pour it out, baby. Pour it out, all right?
I'll hold back.
But when we're talking about George Springer at the top of the lineup, the offer. You mentioned Chapman and the struggles. Those were 2 guys that I highlighted specifically, that if the Blue Jays were going to win this series, if they were going to make noise, they were going to need help from those 2 guys because, look, it is what it is with Vlad Guerrero Jr., call it a down year. I'm sure it's an obvious statement for folks who have watched the season unfold. Not quite the power productivity you would expect out of a guy like Vlad. He smoked a ball last night, got a double, and you could see the emotion, when he got to second base, and you could see the look on his face, kind of like, come on, like, let's go. Like, I finally was able to barrel one here and it counted. Let's go. What are we doing here? And that's that's the dagger. That is the dagger, is you can almost see the offense trying to will itself in a game where it just wasn't happening. And then you mentioned, I listened to you mention, having a mature approach at the plate. That was something that we saw yesterday against the Toronto Blue Jays. That was something that the Minnesota Twins did a wonderful job of, because with what Gausman features, the rule of thumb, and we talk about this with guys that throw knuckleballs, guys that throw splits, if it's high, let it fly. If it's low, let it go. And we all know what that means. If it's up, you can hammer that, because it's probably not going to have the life or the depth on the pitch that it would if it's a little lower. You're going to have a tough time getting to that pitch, hitting with authority, elevating it, all of the things that allow you to score runs when you hit that pitch. Those things are very tough to do against Gausman and that split. When the fastball is located down and that split's wiping you out, it's a long day. Well, they spit on it. They spit on it. They spit on it. They took pitches. They were extremely patient. They saw him up, and they got to a point where, look, Jays had to make a decision. We got to get him out of here. It's 3 runs early. It's 4 innings. We can't afford to let this get any bigger. And that was, I think, a great reflection of the approach you would like to see the Jays take into a game today against a guy like Sonny Gray, who is a master manipulator. Like, this dude, when he was a youngster with us in Oakland, this was a guy who it was great. It was so much fun to watch him throw bullpens, because he was out there just manipulating, just moving, inventing new pitches on the fly, something he is well known for doing throughout the entirety of his career. So I think it would behoove the Jays to take a patiently aggressive approach, if that makes any sense. You see fastballs early, you should probably get that A swing off if you can. Otherwise, he's going to start spinning the baseball, start pulling strings, and that's when you start screwing yourself into the ground against guys like Sonny.
Yeah, man, I'm not. Again, playoff baseball is always just like, screws being put into your thumbs when your team is struggling. But yeah, watching Sonny Gray do this and having 2 games in a row, if they can't produce or they have some bad ABs, I don't know. It's just, I have to do a show every day. And tomorrow's show will be bad. I said if the Twins were going to have a shot at this series, they were going to have to win the Sonny Gray game. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's Sonny Gray now who is in charge of potentially shipping them off to the ALDS. And
that is not quite the seat I wanted the Blue Jays to be sitting in.
No, it's not the seat that I wanted them to be in. Going back to that, it's a perfect breakdown of the way that the Twins did it. I wonder how you felt watching Gausman, though, like your former starting pitcher. And this is a guy who all week we knew what the numbers were against the Twins, right? This is something that's gone back more than a year. The question of, hey, is he tipping? Is it something else?
Is he tipping? Right.
Yeah, and I wonder how much you think that was in his head before the game. Because I had Marco Estrada on yesterday and was talking about this, and he was like, yeah, the Rays had something on me, and it tortured me for years. And he's like, you try to block it out. But it just felt like Gausman early on, when they were just not swinging at that splitter, he started to try to nibble, and then he's getting frustrated with the umpire. I don't want to say empathetic, but yeah, how do you feel watching a guy struggle like that when that's the team that he just can't get it? And what do you think's swirling around in his head when it's going down like that?
Well, honestly, I'm a little bit of I guess I'm a masochist because I enjoy being in situations like that because that's when you're really tested, right?
Huh.
But if we're being honest, I'd like a little easier path to victory if you've got one. But otherwise, yeah, I mean,
I just pictured your teammates being like, don't do this, Dallas. Don't do that thing you like to do where you stress everybody out and you're like, no, it's a test for me, boys. Just relax. It's a test for me. I like this. This is when I'm best.
Yeah, and let's not get it twisted, my brother. I am not trying to encounter that or put myself in that spot or me and the boys in that spot come October. I think you just try to be able to tap into a mindset that tells you, all right, this is where we're going to get better, is dealing with something like this. They're not swinging at anything close. I mean, some of these are wipeout pitches that they're just spitting on. And the problem is some of those pitches came in leverage counts for the hitter, where JD – these guys are not – they're not in a spot where they have to be aggressive. They're in a spot where they're patient. And I think the total buy-in, the complete and total buy-in from top to bottom as far as a approach is concerned is what is reflecting the success against Gausman for this group over the long haul. When you zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture, you have to be committed to an approach. And if I tell you to go up there and be patient, he's not going to give you anything to hit in the first two pitches. If you see one of those splits and there's a good chance you find yourself in a 2-1 count and you go up there and you're patient and you find yourself in a 2-0, 2-1 count, from that point on, that's all you needed to see or to feel to buy in that, hey, you know what? I think we've got something here. If we can lay off that nasty split and see him up, we can hunt some fastballs and we can take advantage of some of those splits that are going to maybe just kind of tumble in there because he's throwing them higher. He's trying to land these for strikes. When he's at his best, he's able to just throw that thing and bury it because it's 0-2, 1-2, 2-2.
Man, what's the saying? Don't ever let him see you cry, right? That's the one. And I had this moment yesterday watching Gausman, though, where I went, dude, I love a fiery pitcher. That's why I missed Manoah this year. I missed the boisterous Manoah who just yells at the opposing dugouts and is staring guys down and challenging people. Because I love when there's emotion and in sports, right? It's natural. But I couldn't help but feel like when Gausman was yelling at the umpire to close the first on balls that were just clearly not strikes, the strike zone was fine. In fact, he actually got bailed out with a huge wide strike zone. That umpire was like, yeah, sure, half a foot outside, that's okay. We're going to give this one. Yeah, you're going to have this one today. When he was doing that, I just felt like, damn, he showed them. I would have thought that those twins in the dugout were like, we got him. We got this dude.
Well, and that is something that is very, very real, my friend, because we know when we're sitting in that dugout and we see the guy on the mound start to chirp early, and we know why. Everybody in the dugout knows it's because we're spitting on his putaways. He's not getting the swings that he's expecting, and he is now feeling us feel him in between pitches, meaning we know what's coming in terms of the split. We know where it's going to be. We know he doesn't want to throw this for a strike, and we know if he does, we all know what that means. The pitch just doesn't have the same quality, and that's going to get hammered. And so he's out there battling not only himself, but those intrusive thoughts of, are these guys, do they really have something on me? And I don't know that was the case. You mentioned the conversation with Marco Estrada. He very well may have been tipped off to a point where he did have the information. He knew that Tampa had something on him. I'm not sure if Gausman knows 100% for sure that they have something on him, but that is still something that now starts to creep into your mind. Like, man, Do they have something? Because I'll be honest, a good club over there, a tight circle, they don't let that out for the next few years.
No,
That's
dude, Estrada said he never found out.
Beyond that room.
He said that the guys from the Rays told him they did have something, but they wouldn't tell him what it was. He still doesn't know to this day. I went, God.
And you know, and once in a great while, you'll get lucky enough to have that exchange where you do get tipped off.
Mm-hmm.
When we had Hideki Matsui come over from Anaheim, the first day of live ABs, after I faced him, he brought his interpreter over, Roger, and he explained to me, he said, hey, me and Torrey, we had the change-up. We had the change-up in Anaheim. He said, that's why I want to tell you, trust it and just continue to throw it. He said, because even though we had it, you still were able to, get outs, but here's what we had. And so I was let in on the tip. I knew what I was doing from that point on, and I made an adjustment. So you're not always that lucky.
You know what I was thinking too yesterday is, and this is something like I have no idea about, how much do you think the Blue Jays went over just film looking for what it could be, right? Where they're just pouring over it, making sure that it's nothing, right? I'm sure that they've got video staff that's trying to make sure, hey, what could it possibly be if he is tipping if he's tipping the splitter in any single way? And how much does the pitcher get involved in that? Because like if I was Gausman, I would want to know if they say, hey, we know what this is. But if they start to theorize and they're starting to look over video and they're bringing you into that process, I feel like that would get into my head. And again, I'm not a major league pitcher. You were. You guys built a little different. You looked at something like, hey, this is a test for me when I'm on my stuff. Like, that's not me. I would have crumbled immediately. That's like, just like right away. Oh, bad things are happening? Crumble, meltdown city. That would be me every single time. But yeah, what do you think that process is like with the video coaches in terms of, hey, what are we looking for here? How much are we doing from that standpoint when it came to the prep?
Well, I can tell you what that's like, not only as a former player, but as somebody who has had the opportunity to go into spring training these last couple of years as an instructor on the minor league side. And that is where I spend a lot of my time, is in the video room, just watching guys and how they watch video, asking questions, what they're looking for, so that I can better help them and maybe gear what I'm looking for towards some of the things that they're looking for. And the reason why that conversation that you have at the very end of it all never happens until you have the answer is for the reason that you mentioned. You answer your own question. You're a smart fella. You said, theorize. Like that's the last thing we need, right? Is 6 chefs in the kitchen kind of him-hawing around about the recipe. Why don't one of you get the recipe? And then we'll plaster it up on the wall and we're going to nail this dinner service. But until then, we're probably not going to bring anybody in to talk about how we're going to do this until we can figure it out, until we can offer the final menu. And that's what the pitching coaches and the brain trusts when it comes to, an analytic department. Because look, video footage and those resources are readily available because of the Edgetronics and the game cameras, or the cameras that are all throughout the ballpark centered on the mound. So you can go back and peel all of that away. And I'm not going to, we don't really have enough time to dive into all of the different things that you can start to look for. I mean, because you can go from top to bottom, quite literally from your feet all the way to your head, your mouth. Is it open? Is it closed? There's so many different things that could very well be tipping this off that you as a pitcher are completely unaware of.
Bro, Berríos got hit with the mouth open or closed. Like that was him tipping when he got busted for one of those. And they were like, yeah, dude, it's the way that you're, chewing your mouth guard. He's like, damn it. that would suck. Yeah. They just got it down to that detail. Some nerd watching the video was like, dude, when he opens his mouth, and then the rest of the team was just, yeah, we're going to ruin a part of your season. Ouch. That stings. That's just awful. So unfair. By the way, what Estrada thinks it was, he thought it was his wrist placement, that Tampa thought it was like up a little bit on the changeup and down a little bit on the heater. And he's talking about half an inch. And that's what they're looking at. I'm like, God, what a cruel sport. What a cruel, cruel sport that is to have that just twist over you forever.
It is. I mean, and think about this. Like when you're throwing pitches, something else that these hitters try to train their eyes in on is fat wrist, skinny wrist. Because if you can see the width of a fat wrist, that tells you 2 pitches are coming. Fastball or a changeup, because that's where you're going to end up pronating out of. Well, if you start to throw a breaking ball, your hand position as it starts to come through to your release point, that tunnel, That tunnel, I'm going to see a skinny wrist because you're essentially going to be karate chopping the baseball. You're going to be working towards the side of the ball, and I'll be able to tell the difference between that. If you can actually hone in, focus in, and really start to track a guy's release point and really lock in on his tunnel, then you have a good shot at, and also you're going to need vision, going to need at least 20/20 here to be able to lock in on that. But that's another way that guys, when they're watching video, you try to differentiate that. So then you take that out to the game mound and you see if you can pick that up. And because these guys they're freak athletes, they're freak human beings, they can do that.
So let's put you as the video coach here then for the Blue Jays tonight. And you just get to sit down with Berríos, and you're the guy that gets to deliver the message, right? You're the one chef who has the recipe. What are you telling him it is tonight against the Twins? What do you want to see from Berríos?
We have to be able, and this is something that I think he understands because of his pitch mix, but we have got to be able to command the baseball in off the plate to prevent them from diving, because he likes to spin the breaking ball. And if he can't command the fastball, number one, for strikes, number one, in and in off, the reason it's important for him to command it in off is so he can set up the outside part of the plate where he's probably going to hunt the majority of his outs away. You need to make this 17-inch plate look about 20 inches if we can do that. How do we do that? We throw strikes with the fastball in, and then we throw the fastball in off so that we can really make that breaking ball, that high-spin breaking ball, what it is. And we can start to get outs with that, weak contact, probably get some swing and miss with that. But you don't want these hitters confident now starting to dive over the plate because they just took a guy in Gausman and his best stuff and got him out of there in 4 innings. Now they're starting to taste themselves a little bit. So you got to get back to what you do well, which is throw the fastball, establish the fastball, and from there he can start to spin it to win it.
Okay, so conversely, now they go, hey, you're a guy who's seen a ton of Sonny Gray over the course of his career. You even saw him with those Oakland teams. Now we want to bring in the batters, and we're saying, hey, the hitting coach, Guillermo Martinez, he's going to step out. We're going to let Dallas Braden decide what the approach is supposed to be tonight. What do you want to see from the Jays batters? How do you attack Sonny Gray?
Be ready to go early on the fastball. Be ready to go early on the fastball. Make him throw you the fastball. And what does it mean by make him throw? Well, if he's not going to land the breaking balls for strikes, or if he is going to land the breaking balls for strikes, you're going to have to fight those off. If he doesn't land the breaking ball for strikes, then you can eliminate those because those are no longer a threat for you. But the problem with Sonny is he might go out there and start inventing another hybrid cutter. He might start inventing a hybrid two-seamer, and now you're dealing with a pitch that you haven't seen before. So that's why I think the adage against a guy like Sonny Gray, who, as I said at the very beginning of this, is a master manipulator, you want to see if you can get the fastball up and get to that pitch early. You don't want to let him get in those leverage counts where he really, because he's a guy, when Sonny Gray starts to create rhythm, you have no chance because he's out there having fun. He's almost having an out-of-body experience where the hitter he's just kind of up there as an ornament. He already knows that the out is coming. It's just a matter of how he wants to do it.
Yeah.
So you get him out of that comfort zone by whacking the fastball and then forcing him to have to command the breaking balls.
Okay, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here because, the Jays are facing Sonny Gray tonight, and it's an elimination game. And it's an offense that just has been, scratching and clawing and, trying their best to eke out 3 to 4 a game. If they do get to game 3, if this does happen, last time I talked to you was when the Jays signed Bassett, and you nailed it. Like every part of the profile with Bassett turned out to be true, right? He gave the Jays an incredible year. He was unbelievable. 200 innings pitched. Clear leader in the clubhouse, I think became one of the voices, in the absence of Manoah, having one of those voices in there, he clearly was one of the dudes that mattered the most when he spoke. He was announced the game 3 guy originally, and now there's some hey, maybe it wouldn't be him. He's got, his splits against lefties are not phenomenal. His numbers on the road this year are not phenomenal. I know he's a gamer, but if it's game 3, how much of that goes into your decision-making, how he's performed against the Twins, the lefties, the road splits, versus a guy like Kikuchi, the lefty, who, has been better against the Twins and does have, the obviously the profile to get a team like the Twins out a little bit better?
Well, it's almost. I mean, do you start to entertain the notion of a piggyback where we take what Chris Bassett has given us and we give him the opportunity to continue to lead us into this postseason and say, look, Bassey, you give us what you got against this tough platoon. We understand how things have gone over the course of the entire season. Guess what? Guess what your ERA is this year in the postseason? It's a 0. It's a clean start. So are we able to, I don't know, and I hate to say sneak, but are we able to sneak 3 or 4 innings out of Bassett without any damage against a platoon side that hasn't had a ton of success against? Is there any chance? And if so, let's say you get 12 outs from Chris Bassett and you've got the lefties lined up to start to roll through the 5th, the 6th, the 7th. Is there any thought to rolling Kikuchi out there at that time so that now you really punch that platoon in the face and you're forcing them to make decisions? You're forcing them to have to match up, right? If you got Rocco Baldelli out there scratching his head trying to figure out who he's going to match up against because it's Kikuchi out there carving people up in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, then you probably have a shot to win that ball game. But that's, again, in a world where we're entertaining running Bassett out there to start the ball game and then possibly bringing in your starter behind him. I don't know how comfortable they would be in doing that. But, I mean, if we need to get to the DS, I'm worried about how we get there. I'm not concerned with game 1 of the DS. I need to get the boys there. So maybe this is a real conversation we have.
No, dude, that's exactly it. And I would imagine, I would imagine that Bassett, the scenario that I kind of see with him is, hey, did he have a better year than Kikuchi? Absolutely. But did he have a better year than Kikuchi against the Twins? Or, does he look better against this lineup? I don't think so. And it obviously means a lot to him. The guy hit 200 innings, and he was pretty emotional after he did it. And he talked about how meaningful it was to him to have a year like this after the way last year finished. And I would just think, he's getting up there. He doesn't have too many years left in the majors. It doesn't look like he's done by any stretch of the imagination when you have a season like this one. But that this playoff start he would just be chomping at the bit to get a game 3, right? This is an opportunity for him to put back the ghost from last year, put away the Twins, put his team into the DS, all that different stuff. But he also has to counterbalance that with being a vet and being one of those leaders who's willing to self-sacrifice. It feels like a really tough position that he could end up being in with game 3 if it does come down to that.
Well, I think if you're asking whether or not Chris Bassett is somebody who's going to tell you that he doesn't want to take the baseball because he feels there's somebody else better for the job, you're higher than I am. That is not going to happen.
I'm not.
What you would want to see happen is have that moment of clarity, that moment of honesty. Should we find ourselves, JD, in the 4th or in the 5th with a guy on base, couple lefties coming up, and now we kind of know how this thing has unfolded before in the past. But we like what the scoreboard looks like right now. So is it that moment where Chris Bassett is honest and says, look, I've given you what I've got right now. We're in a tight spot here. Maybe we go get some help. I mean, if that's the case, but there's no chance. I don't know what world that would exist where Chris Bassett says, no, I don't want the ball.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that. Last one. You've been generous with the time. Does it matter at all that Berríos used to be a Twin? Like that this is a place he's comfortable with? Yes, it does, eh? Okay, good. Yeah. Why?
Yes, absolutely. Well, it could be that double-edged sword also. You're excited because you know what to expect, and you know that maybe even to an extent some of the energy surrounding the moment at the beginning is going to be manufactured because you are a former player here, and the volume only goes so high. After that, it's really just white noise because I've been here, done that. I know what they're trying to do. And then there's also that little edge, right? I don't want to go out there and lay an egg against this club. I do not want to go out there and give them every reason to go, see, we just didn't think that you were this guy for us. We didn't, and we told you, see, you're not that guy for them. We made the right decision. Like, you can have all of those, again, intrusive thoughts start to come into play, but I think just the familiarity, it should anyway, help him, because I've always said for a pitcher or a starting pitcher specifically, home, away should never matter. You should get as comfortable as possible, as quickly as possible, making home the mound, and that's it.
Hey, buddy, it's always fun getting a chat. I really appreciate you coming on.
No problem, buddy. Thanks for having me, and cheer up, chin up, all right?
I'm feeling optimistic, man. I like That's the sickness. That's the sickness of being a sports fan and baseball fan is like, I'm miserable about that game. I'm like weirdly not looking forward to watching this at all because I know it's going to be torture, but I'm like, we're going to win. The Jays are going to win. It's going to happen. They're going to come back.
By the time you pull the poutine off the stove, it could be 1-0 George Springer.
Yeah, that's honestly, I said that yesterday. That's my favorite thing. My dream always is trying to miss the very beginning of the game and just going to the TV and seeing that your team is already up. Like there's nothing sweeter than that. That is the all-time best gift you can give me. So yes, I hope I'm pulling the poutine off the stove and it's 1-0. George Springer drove one. And let that happen, Dallas. Let that happen. All right, buddy. Enjoy the games today.
Take it easy, brother. You too, man.